Hey there guys, welcome back for another Warhammer 40,000 Imperium painting video. So this week we've got a little bit of a double video going on in regards to the magazines, and that is because with issue 9 and 10 we got two halves of a Necron set, or Necron warrior set. So we got 4 Necrons and 2 Scarabs with one issue, and I think it was 6 Necrons and a Scarab with the other issue, and both issues combined gave us 10 warriors and 3 Scarabs. So for the painting video for this, I'm just doing the one model Necron warrior that covers both issues. You can check out the issues and the playthroughs up in the corner here. I'll put a link up there, but for now let's get to the model. So I've chosen to do the Novokh Dynasty. Obviously you guys have seen how I'm doing my custom Dynasty. So when it comes to some of the Necron models, or where we get duplicates and stuff, I'll show 1 or 2 different dynasties. I've got like 60 warriors, so I've got a few spare to show you guys some dynasties. Anyway, Novokh Dynasty, as we know, is metal base with the red detailing on the shoulder guards and the face. So I've gone ahead and primed this model with a silver primer, and I'm now applying a wash of Nuln Oil. Now normally I don't show this in my videos where I'm painting Necrons, but I thought with this one I'll show you guys exactly how I'm applying the Nuln Oil, and explain that just in case you guys are new to painting, new to Warhammer, and want to see how we do shading. So I'm using the medium shade brush from Games Workshop here with a pot of Nuln Oil, and as you can see I am just loading up that brush by dipping it into the pot, placing it onto the model and moving it around. I'm getting it to sit in all those recesses, all the gaps and cracks, everywhere that we want the Nuln Oil to go. On the larger or more flat surfaces, I'm more sort of brushing it across just to stain the area, and then areas such as the shoulder guards, for example, I'll let it pool a little bit just at the lower back area where they sort of end on his shoulder blades, and what that does is gives a little bit of a shadow effect once dried. Now with Nuln Oil or any shade, it's important not to allow too much pooling. You don't want, big areas of sort of drops in areas, and you don't want big clumping of the wash or shade anywhere. You want it in those recesses, you want it on those flat areas, and then like I said, certain areas like the shoulder guards, it's nice to just have a little bit more there that sits there. You can see now where I'm just sort of cleaning up and applying bits. If you find that you've got too much on an area and you can't move it around anywhere, all the surrounding areas have got oil or wash on them, just wipe your brush off a little bit or dab it on some paper towel just so there's no paint in the bristles, and then just touch it to the Nuln Oil and that will absorb up some of that wash. Another thing to bear in mind with shades and washes is once this starts to dry, usually a couple of minutes, try not to go back to it until it is fully dried. It's important that you get those drops and stuff soaked up. If you go back to it, you're going to move some of that shading around, you're going to absorb some, and it's going to leave sort of like a tea stain mark where the outside has already started to dry and you're absorbing the middle of this drop away, and it just doesn't leave a nice effect. So once you've got your shade on, set it aside for about 20 minutes and let it dry. Okay, so with that Nuln Oil dried, the next thing we want to do is take some Necron compound that you can see me doing here, and as you can see the bristles were a little bit too thick to fit in the brush, or in the pot. Brush was too thick to fit in the pot. That's what I'm trying to say. Get it out. So I'm using the back end of the brush, the handle, just to get some of that paint onto my mat here, and then you can see I've wiped it into the paper towel to get it off the handle, and I'm just using that excess that's in there to coat the bristles. And then what I'm doing is getting these all into those bristles, really working it in there, and then I'll remove any excess again on the paper towel, or as you can see here on the surface. There's barely any coming off, and so I know that is now good to dry brush. And all I'm doing is just gently going over the model just to catch some of those raised areas, those hard edges and those more flat surfaces. This will just give them a little bit more of a shine back that obviously the Nuln Oil would have dulled down. And that will be pretty much the basics of the Necron model done. This is what I do for any of my silver when I have a large areas of silver on my Necron warriors, or any of my Necrons. I'll apply this between the shading or after the shading stage, and then I can get on with the painting. Okay, so with the basics of the Necron warrior done, we're now moving on to the weapon. And for this, I'm just taking some Abaddon black and applying this to the barrels of the rifle. Obviously, if you're using a Gauze Flayer instead of the Gauze Reaper, which is what this guy's holding, then you've just got the one slightly longer barrel. But either way, Abaddon black over the barrel, trying not to get it on the orbs, and also trying not to get it into the recess. You've got these lines on there. Doesn't matter if you do, we can, you can sort that out later with some thin down white. But if you use some slightly thin down Abaddon black, you'll find that as long as you apply the brush or the paint carefully, it actually won't flow into those gaps. It will actually take sort of the shape of the barrel. I'll also obviously do this over the rest of the gun, leaving the underarm and the front portion in the silver, and also the sort of that textured coil, the small loop one that comes down, that will also be silver. The longer smooth wire or cable will also be done in this, and the coils there, the power coils, they will also be left in the silver for now. So I'll get on with this, get a couple of coats on there, get it nice and solid black, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so once the Abaddon black is there, I'm now taking some Eshin grey and a fairly fine brush. I think this is a size 2, possibly a size 1. And all I'm doing is, with a little bit of paint on the bristles, I'm just using the side of the brush for the most part to run along the edges of the weapon. So anywhere that has black on it, that is now getting a line of Eshin grey. This is the first stage of highlight. With the barrels, I tend to just do the vertical edges, not so much the horizontal ones where the orbs are and the sort of those cut-ins, or power lines, whatever you would want to call them. So you can see here with this barrel part, because of the rounded shape of it, I'm just dotting in some Eshin grey, just to give that slight highlight on the rounded texture. But otherwise, I'm just doing the vertical lines on the barrel there. Following that, I'm now taking a 50-50 mix of the Eshin grey and a Fenrisian grey, with a slightly bit more of the Fenrisian. It's pretty much a 50-50, but I'll lighten it up slightly with the Fenrisian grey. And again, very finely, I'm going over the previous highlights. What I'm doing with this is keeping them on the horizontals and the verticals only, the upper horizontals. So where the light would come from above, those are the edges that I'm highlighting. And I'm also keeping these lines a little bit thinner and within the Eshin grey lines, just so a little bit of that Eshin grey shows through before we come to the black. So try and get the camera shot there, but yeah, there we go. Okay, so with the weapon pretty much finished now, I'm now moving on to the shoulder pads and the faceplate. And for this, I'm just using some Mephiston red, again slightly thinned down as always. You don't want to use thick layers of paint on these or on any models. Should always have it slightly thinned down. And as you can see, getting a nice even coat of the red over the shoulder plates, the front portion of the face, and I've said this before, the faces on Necrons, I think they call them death masks. If you look at the way that the model has it, he has the back of the skull, and then you can actually see the mask looks like it's clamped onto the skull. So the back part I leave silver, and it's just the face plate that we do in the Dynasty colours. So obviously in this case the red, and then also the centerpiece in the chest. You've got that little Ankh symbol. That will also be done in red. The coffin shape section of it will have the red. This guy does actually have a little scarab on a rock right down by his foot, and for that I also did the scarab's body and his little tiny head in red as well. But I do refrain from putting highlights on that. He's too small. He just gets a basic coat of red. Right, so next up I'm taking some Agrax Earthshade, and I'm just applying this over the red areas. So obviously getting a nice smooth coat on here, and then what I'll do, you can see here, I'm just trying to get it to sit in the where the shoulder blade becomes part of the spine and curves up. In that curved area, and then a little bit down at the bottom, I just want the Agrax Earthshade to sit in there. And what this is going to do is hopefully it will dry off and give a nice gradient along the center area there. And then I'm just showing you there where it won't go right to the edges. It will actually leave a little bit of an edge. That gives pretty much a natural highlight with the shade providing the shadow. So then obviously don't forget the edges and the area between the spines down here. And then with the death mask, we just do the same, just sort of blob it on the face. Don't let it pull in any particular area too much. You do want a little bit just under the cheekbones, or what passes for cheekbones, and obviously you want it to set in the eyes a little bit. And then the same with the Ankh, and I do it later on with the little scarab, but obviously that's whether or not scarabs are on your particular model. I'll then set this aside, leave it for about 15 minutes to dry, and then we can move on with the next step. Okay, so once the Agrax Earthshade has fully dried, I'm now going in with some Evil Sunz Scarlett and doing a fairly thick edge highlight. You can see here I'm using a size 1 brush, and I'd say the thickness of the highlight is about the thickness of the bristles. Obviously nothing too thick, but enough that it's not quite a fine edge highlight. It's a little bit sort of bolder than that. I'll run this also down the edge of the spine. When I say the spine, I mean the vertical part of the red. So as the angle that we're seeing it here, it's the flat surface right there. As perfect timing for a voiceover. But yeah, you can see running this just around the edges, and you can see how that Agrax Earthshade settled on the bottom of the shoulder blades there, and has given a bit of a highlight shade, sorry, and then left some of the more Mephiston red towards the top, given a nice gradient from the darkened Mephiston down to the Agrax Earthshade. And then next I'll take some Wild Rider red, and you can see I'm again using the size 1 brush. I'm just very carefully edge highlighting now, so this is a much thinner highlight than the Evil Sunz Scarlett. And if you notice on these spine parts, I'm only coming down to just over halfway down the spine, as is more of a sharper edge highlight just on the areas where the sun would, or the sunlight, the light source would catch. So anywhere along the top of the shoulder blades, just out of camera now, but I'm doing sort of around the eye sockets, along the cheekbones, and then sort of the top area of the face mask as it curves around with the skull. Okay, so I'm now taking some white scar and just applying this over the orbs along the barrel of the gun. Now at this point I will say that this is just after I've done the Agrax Earthshade wash, so it is still wet on the red area there. What I've done is during editing I've just moved this section so that I can show you all of the red stage and then come to this stage. But obviously you can do it any way you want, just obviously don't touch any of that red area with the brush or your fingers. So yeah, just some white scar, not too much thinned down as we want this to go on fairly clean, fairly straight. But yeah, just along the orbs, along the barrels, and as you can see the coils here. Once that's dried, I'll then thin down the white to a bit more of a wash consistency and apply that in the gaps between the coils here. So obviously I'm painting the raised areas at the minute. I'll apply a washed down white in those areas, and the same for around the orbs where the orbs are joined by the little cut-in sections. You've got the lines in there. I'll apply the whitewash in there as well, and this is in preparation for the glows. Also, once the face mask has dried, I will apply this into the eye sockets as well. And also, if you've got the little the cute little scarab there, then just a quick blob of white on his little orb in his back there as well. And then once the white has dried, I'm now taking some Athonian Camoshade and I'm using this in those white recesses. And what this is going to do, when we apply the next green over the top, it's just going to darken those areas slightly. Some people do a black wash or something like that in there. I like the Athonian Camoshade because it's already green, it just stains in there nicely. So obviously this goes between the coils, and then as you can see just around these orbs and the connecting lines. I'll then let that dry again for about 10-15 minutes, let it fully dry, and then move on to the final step. And that final step is the super easy glow effect using Tesseract Glow. And you can see I'm just flooding it over the orbs there. This is going to stain the surfaces, the white areas, with this green, which goes sort of a yellowy green when it dries. And it's also going to sit down in those recesses. And because of the Athonian Camoshade that's in there, it's going to dry a little bit darker. And it gives us a nice green glow in there that's obviously a little bit darker than the orbs themselves. I'll also do this in the eye sockets, and as I said, the scarab, he gets a nice little drop of this as well on his back. And that is it. So we'll let this dry for about 10 minutes and then we can have a look at the finished model. And there he is, one finished Necron warrior of the Novokh dynasty. So I've gone ahead and finished his base there. That's actually a homemade texture base, or base texture. I'll put a link in the corner here if you would like to see how I make that texture. And that is the end of the video, guys. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. I hope that if you are looking at painting this dynasty, that this helps you in painting your models. If you have enjoyed the video and it does help you, hit that thumbs up button. If you are not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And if you have recently subscribed, a huge warm welcome to the channel. Thank you for your support. If you have any feedback and comments that you guys would like to leave, then the comments section is the place to do that. But until next time, guys, take it easy and keep painting those minis.